Picture this. A customer calls a contact center, shares a problem, waits through transfers, and hangs up frustrated on hold. That's a bad CX. Now imagine that same customer isn't routed at all. They speak with the right person immediately with history already available and get the right answer fast. That's good CX. Today we sit down with Tim Muhundan from CEO of Automate.CX, who specializes in building journeys where every touch point feels like predictive and personal. Let's explore how we can bring automation without losing humanity. Welcome to the Kiwi CX Collective, Tim Muhundan.
Great to be here, Elias.
Well, it's great to have you, Tim. Now, for our audience members who might not have met you before, can you give us a little bit of background in terms of who is Tim and how you've grown up through the contact center and CX world?
So my experience with the contact center goes back a few decades when I had the privilege of being part of the team that implemented the Air New Zealand contact center and this customer relationship management system. So I had a pretty technical background. And it didn't take me long to realize how important CX and contact center are for engagement with the customers and making sure that the customers keep on coming back. And so much so that I started my own company. It revolves around creating CRM for other businesses. And that got me really deep into understanding the pain points of how hard it is to create the perfect customer experience. So I do that for a living now.
Wow. Now, it's interesting to have this conversation with you because whilst we talk about the Kiwi CX Collective, and most people understand CCN and Z from the contact center network perspective.
Yes.
Contact centers and CX are really at a crossover point because I don't think you can have contact centers without CX.
Absolutely not, no.
I'm interested to explore a little bit more about what the CX element is and how technology is now being used and implemented, especially with AI starting to increase. I know in the conversations we have as we go around for a big long walks around Hobsonville Point, it's been great to listen to you share some of the experiences of what you're doing. So as we have this discussion today, I want to explore some of the opportunities of what is happening in the area of CX. So can we start off by saying, what is a good implementation of CX and what does that look like?
So a good implementation of CX is where every single touch point, right from when someone is a complete stranger to the first interaction they have with you, the first time that you actually talk to them on the phone or have a face-to-face meeting, the follow-up, and them becoming a transactional customer, to what happens afterwards, the support. Every single experience needs to be as perfect as it can be so that that's positive and they walk away feeling, wow, that was really good. So those small experience at each touch points make up the overall customer experience. And that could be a contact center touch point. It could be a Facebook ad that they interact with. It could be a phone call. So all those touch points make up a really good customer experience. Now, if you design that journey with a little bit of help from AI, you can get the best of both worlds. So you have the human touch combined with the automation and now powered by AI. So you no longer is a logical thing. It's actually an intelligent thing based on learning, based on the data set that you have about the previous interactions, about the background of that customer, about their unmet needs, and about their frustrations. So when you combine those together and have a bunch of agents that look after each one of those, that creates a perfect customer experience.
So then if you look at this, there's a couple of elements in there that intrigues me. I'm going to come back and talk about this later on, which is AI agents.
Yes.
Because I think AI agents are going to be a growth of what we're going to see in the future. It's going to enhance the opportunity of delivering that good customer experience. But then talk me through an example of a bad customer experience and what you've seen happening out there in the market.
Well, it's funny, Elias, you brought that up because on the day that we met for the first time, the thing that the thing that actually brought us closer together as a CX enthusiast was your frustration holding on the phone for 90 minutes before you came to that meeting, and the frustrations of how that call center person treated you. So it had everything bad about customer experience. Number one, you had to wait.
Yeah.
Number two, you weren't routed to the right person. Number three, you didn't get the outcome you wanted, even at the end, did you?
No.
So those are the standard metrics that you measure contact center experiences with, and that is a bad experience. It's a miracle that you still stay with them.
Maybe if I had a viable alternative, I might have gone elsewhere. But when you have a captive audience, captive market, it's sometimes challenging. I think today, if you think about that, we are seeing innovation across multiple industries, and people now have more options. So we have to understand that the way that we treat our customers, how we give them that journey, and the experience will determine whether they are a long-term customer or they're going to be a churn in your client base. If you think about the growth, and you mentioned people who might be interacting with you on the phone or via a Facebook ad or some sort of what I call omni-channel. What are you seeing from a CRM perspective and a CX perspective that says, how do we help and aid an agent who is dealing with a customer that might be having multiple touch points through multiple channels with our organization?
So it's interesting, really, how that question, if you asked me that a year ago, the challenges that the New Zealand companies were facing was there was a downturn in sales across pretty much right across the board. Most companies were in trouble, especially the ones with debt, because the interest rate was quite high. So the challenge at that time was keep the cost down. So there was a tendency for people who talk to me to say, hey, Tim, can you automate these interactions completely? We want to get rid of our staff. And they brought in lots of AI agents to handle that customer service. And many of those people are actually looking at it thinking, well, this is not exactly the wisest thing to do, because a better outcome would have been to retain those agents, but to make their life so easy that they can focus on that empathetic conversations with the humans, but have all the information in front of them to provide that service at a fraction of the time, so they're not rummaging through previous conversations, notes, and transcripts. So that's where we are seeing the change. So now when agents have time constrained and they're feeling like they are just about to burn out, well, find out what their pain points are, what are the kind of information that's are roadblocks for them to provide that service, and have these little agents provide that for them. So instead of having lots of different screens, everything should be in one single interface where you've got all their previous history, you've got their wants, their needs, their frustrations from previous interactions, all in one place, so that they can actually focus on having that conversation in one and solve their problems on the spot.
So that sounds like an ideal situation that may be somewhere way, way, way in the future. What you're describing could appear to be quite a complex solution and quite an expensive one to implement. Am I right in saying that?
It is. Well, if you actually look at all the surveys that have come out in the last 30 days, you got one survey that says 95% of projects where they have injected AI into CX did not return the investment.
Okay.
You got other surveys that says they have got 30%, like the Zoom one that came out yesterday, said that there was 30% increase in productivity. Me personally, I wouldn't be happy with 30% increase in productivity. It needs to be multiples, because if you are implementing it correctly, and if you have done your homework first to understand the frustrations of those pain points and the roadblocks, then you should be getting multiples of 3, 4, 5 times increase in efficiency and increasing that customer experience level. So the biggest trend I'm seeing at the moment is that people are just looking at these surveys and thinking, oh my God, am I missing out because I'm not doing any of this AI stuff? And they're randomly copying what somebody else have done. But what businesses should be doing is to look at their business, their pain points, their friction, and just have those use cases to address first, and then you get your return.
So what I'm hearing you say is that comparison is dangerous because you're seeing somebody else, what they're doing, and hey, I better jump on the bandwagon now to
Yes.
do something.
Yeah.
Are there pros or are there cons in approaching it that way from what you see other people doing?
Look, if you want to get the maximum return on your investment from AI, before you go down the path of AI, you need to have a really good system in place, right? So that could be a good CRM system, a good business system, and good system to manage all the other internal HR and things like that. Once you have that, then you can make sure that the AI component will work beautifully. If you don't do that, what your employees will do is have like 6 or 7 different AI tools sitting on different browsers, copying and pasting from one place to another, and that's when you have got IT risks. Your client data will end up in an open AI platform learning algorithm, and you are actually copying and pasting private information, meeting transcripts into these AI bots that you have no idea about their data sovereignty or where they sit and how that data is going to be used to train other learning. So it's really, really important that you do that as a proper business transformation projects, like any other IT projects. So jumping on the bandwagon and saying, oh yeah, these people are using XYZ AI is very dangerous. You need to do your own homework to find out what will work for you, but have it as a long transformation project where you do small bit. So find something that is a friction point, solve that problem, find the return,
Yeah.
and then you keep doing that until you have a perfect customer journey.
So then if you go back and look at this, look at it from the aspect of your business. What is happening in your business today, understanding the pain points that are in your business and then addressing it through. If you then look at this from a CRM perspective, as an example, we're talking about data. We're talking about having information in a fashion that is, number one, accurate, and number two, contained. Because you talk about shadow AI, people with multiple AI implementations in the organization, potentially compromising some very, very confidential information and leaking it out into LLM models. So if we look at this, are we talking about the implementation of these sort of projects only being in the domain of really large corporates, or are they scalable down to the single person organization that can use this to become more efficient?
So there's 2 ways to answer that. So if you're looking at the size of the organization, it doesn't really matter, because the more you more people you have, more resources you have, the more moving parts you will have, and it incrementally gets fairly complex. If you are a one-man band, you are the only person doing stuff, then it might actually be cheaper to have an open AI type model where you have your own paid version of it, and you have all the information, you lock it down, and you can do it that way. The moment you go from that to a team and you're collaborating, that's when you need to have a system in place, and you need to have the securities, you need to have the way to actually sandbox that data so it doesn't actually get out. And the moment you have 3 to 4 people working together as a team, if you want to get the efficiency, then you really need to have a system in place that has got AI built in. So in my case, I use 2 tools. I use Zoom for all the voice and contact center type stuff, and I use Zoho for all the customer relationship management. And I use that for my customers as well. So for example, I've got a customer who is in the financial services industry. So he has a team of dozen plus advisors who all they do is find the best mortgage or loan package for them. Some of them have got bad credit. Some of them have got issues with not being able to afford the deposit. And some people can't afford the repayment. So not all the banks will be a good fit for them. And it takes a lot of time, maybe about half a day per customer before. And by automating those processes in a safe, secure way, because you're working about financial data here, right? So to get the maximum chance of getting the best mortgage deal from up to 30 different suppliers is a beautiful use case for AI, because number one, you can actually find the best fit. So the AI can go through the policies of every single one of those lenders and find out their restrictions. Well, what is the penalties for paying early, for example? What's the penalty for splitting up your mortgages into different things? And based on the information you capture about the customer in the fact find, you can find the best fit. And the AI will come back. The AI little agent will tell the advisor, well, these are the three that is a really good fit.
Yeah.
And this is the reason. And then they can tell the customer, look, we recommend you actually go with this, this, or this. And then the customer will make a decision based on their brand affinity or previous history. But the important thing is that the customer makes a final choice, but the advisor has been empowered with that information so that it's accurate, it's relevant, and it's personalized for that particular case. So that's one example. But the next problem is that these people have provided all the fact-find information about their expenditures, and different banks have got different rules on how they interpret, say, your office expenses or your gym expenses.
Yeah.
So how do you get that standardized data from your bank statement and present it in different ways to the banks? So again, this is where AI comes in. So you can actually get them to fill up 3 different application forms based on 3 different set of rules. And the little AI agents will do that for you and do it in a secure, your own private little AI realm, which is not shared with other public open AI domains where you got learning that happens on your data. So that's a really good model that will scale, because that works for a small business. Even under $1 million business can actually afford the infrastructure to have a really good CRM system, a good AI implementation on top of it, and the whole thing just works beautifully.
If you then look at that sort of implementation, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, so is there a hidden cost? So if you roll it out, and I don't know, maybe licensing costs as an example, if you have an implementation, do you roll it out across the whole organization? Does everybody need access to some of these AI models? Because if there is then a cost of $20 or $50 per agent or per employee per month, that can soon start to add up to quite an extensive cost. How important is it to look at all these hidden costs and figure out what's the right solution for the organization?
Okay, that's a really good question. So what I find working with the mid-sized businesses is that you have 3 types of employees. You got the customer engagement team, then you got the leadership team, and then you got the operations team, right? So these 3 people have got 3 different types of needs. The management team needs to have a look at big dashboards, big analytics. So for that, the AI agent will be collecting the data so that they have all the data in their fingertip, so that they can make decisions not the week after, but within the same hour.
Yeah.
With the operations, they need to know about the costing, the financials, the sales, all that kind of stuff. And that information can be fed straight into them, what they need to see. And the people in the warehouse, if they are doing an e-commerce site, for example, that they don't need all the access to the customer information. They just need the information to pick their orders, for example, right? So we work with one of the pieces of software that we work with is from a company called Zoho. And Zoho has this approach of providing CRM for everyone. But you don't actually have to have the top of the CRM CX interface for every single employee. So you can have what's called a light user. You can have 100 light users, for example, and those people will have access to the core data that they need to do their job, but nothing more. Whereas someone who has to deal with customers, customer complaints, previous orders or whatever, they need to have the entire 360-degree view of the customers. So they have a higher functional licensing cost with more components, right? So very often what we do is when we actually sit down with the business and find out, okay, so you got these different types of users, this is the most efficient way to get the licensing so that your cost of ownership is as low as possible. The second thing you want to do is make sure that you don't actually have third-party AI licenses. That adds to your customer relationship management and CX cost. So the first generation contact center, they all relied on one of the three big AI platforms. So the company would have to buy the team version of those licenses and then find a way to bolt that on, and then you have to keep on paying these two different people. So in 2025, many of the big CRM vendors have mature AI platforms of their own, totally integrated. So you only have one invoice, and that includes your AI agents. You might actually get charged a little bit extra on usage depending on the processing, because they do actually process. The processing takes a lot of CPU cycles and memory on the data center. So if you're a high user who are transcripting 500 customer notes every hour, then you expect to be billed for that. But for average user in a New Zealand mid-sized company, that'll be included in the standard pricing. So don't be put off by the thought that AI is going to cost you a lot, because most companies, if it's done properly, they get the return on their investment within months, not years.
Yep. So then let's look at the expansion within AI. We already mentioned the use of AI agents.
Yes.
Give us some examples of how an AI agent might be used, where you might be able to use it, one of your customers has been using it to drive productivity and efficiency gains into the organization.
Great. So I'll talk about something that's personal to me, which is how I evolved as a business owner. So when I first met you, I had a virtual agent, virtual
assistant.
Virtual assistant,
Yeah.
a VA in Philippines who did all my stuff. So I kept, calling her or texting her, telling her to do this. And sometimes she'd be in a different time zone. It doesn't get done. So now all I have to do is to press this button here and speak into it. And I say, I just met Elias. Can you schedule an appointment 3 o'clock next Tuesday? We're going to have a strategy session. Tag Elias as a hot prospect and stop. And then I'd say, number 2, can you do a deep research on Elias? And my CRM system logs on as me into my LinkedIn, and it actually finds out all your passions, which football team you support in the UK.
London is red, that's all I will say.
And by the time I meet you on Tuesday, I've got enough information to do the icebreakers, enough information to find out what your unmet needs are, what your frustrations are, whether you like the National Party polls or ACT Party polls. So by having that intelligence about you, I can actually connect with you at a more human level. But the AI agent will do that for me so that I can do things that AI agent cannot do, which is making that meaningful connections with you.
Yeah. I'm interrupting. I love that, because you're talking about that empathy, that human connection.
Yes.
And one of our other guests also mentioned connection is being important. AI will be very intelligent. It will give you analytics, and it might automate certain tasks, as you've already pointed out, but it cannot currently give you the empathy and the connection that I think we all need. And as humans, we need more connection.
I think it's slowly getting there. One of the latest models come out in the last 3 or 4 weeks. They actually have personalities. One of them is a mirror image of my 18-year-old daughter. It's grumpy, it's sarcastic, it's annoying as hell. I could only put up with it for like an hour, and I thought, no, I want to go back to my default voice agent. And this is ChatGPT version 5 from OpenAI. So I was actually quite impressed that how human it was at um, faking empathy.
Mm.
And you've seen those fake empathy in first generation chatbots, and it annoys the hell out of you. It sounds insincere. But I think we are slowly working our way towards having those automated exchange feel your sentiment to the point where they'll tone down the responses appropriately. If you're angry, your inflections on the voice shows that you are really upset, like when you're after holding for Netflix at 55 minutes. It needs to show some compassion, not be patronizing and annoying, and I think we will get there probably this time next year. But right this moment in time, AI does lack that.
So then let me ask you, what are the biggest challenges you're dealing with right now?
It's keeping up with the compliance. So one of the things that happens in Europe, which is a little bit ahead of New Zealand in terms of stricter privacy laws, is that you can't just say that, oh, well, my CRM vendor or my data center looks after uh, my privacy. You take ownership of your privacy of your data, your client's data, and we don't do that. I've walked into office and I've seen members of the team having ChatGPT open on one window and they have Outlook in the another window, and I see them copying and pasting information from one to the other. And man, that's so dangerous, because if you actually use ChatGPT default version, it's that model where you don't allow it to you're forced to share the information, the free version, for example, right? Whereas the paid version, you have a little checkbox where you can say, do not use my data or my voice recording for machine learning. So yeah, I think our biggest concern is New Zealanders are not aware of the data security risks, about compliance issues, because we don't actually have those standards enforced on like the way that Europe have. But if you have got customers in Europe, you are constrained by those. So you need to make sure that if you are storing data about your interactions, if you're encoding or recording and transcripting their conversations, you make sure that the way that's stored and the way that's transcribed is in a compliant way. And you can't just say, well, I got XYZ AI tool I bought for $30 in a yeah, that's the biggest challenge I think we are facing at the moment here.
So then let's shift the conversation and let's start to talk about leadership. I am fully convinced that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. If you look at the CX world, what defines good leadership to you in CX?
So when I first started talking to business leaders, one of the most biggest frustration I had with the leadership is that they'll say, "Ah, this is all a hype," you know. And in 2022, when even before ChatGPT came, most of my CRM had a huge component of AI when no one was talking about AI, but the businesses didn't even know what it was. So at that time, it was ignorance. The year after, they knew about it, but they thought it was hype. And the year after that, they had this FOMO, oh my God, I missed out. Can I still catch up? And then they just randomly trying to adapt something so that um, they're not actually, they can say, oh yeah, I got AI. So the best thing a leader can do is understand their own company's frustrations, pains, and needs, and figure out how AI can solve some of those problems, and be open to trying out a few things and be brave enough to just commit to those projects and not just start it, but actually support the people who are implementing it all the way to completion to see if they actually produces the return. It's an experimental approach because we are all sort of figuring it out as we go. It's a bit like years and years ago, we've seen the use of cloud, and people will say, "Oh my God, cloud! I'm not sure about my data. I'm quite happy having that in next door in this little air-conditioned room, so I can see it." So the moment you put it on cloud, it was scary for them. And now the new generation of leadership have similar challenge. Do I trust a machine? Is it going to become self-aware and we're going to have problems? Um, it's a bit like the experience I had with my mobile phone, my broadband company. After I cancelled it, the AI decided that I'm a very, very valuable customer and reactivated my account. Gave me an extra 30 days free. And of course, it's a fiber plant, so I need a fiber router. So it couldn't really do that in theory, but it did. So we had to make sure that there are checks and safeguards in place so that as a business leader, you are protecting you against any liability, and you're protecting your employees and your organization against any data breaches. And more importantly, you have to take ownership. If your AI bot makes a mistake, it's just like one of your employees making a mistake. So the buck stops with the leaders.
I love that, because you've hit now, I think, a very important element, which is that we've got to have AI governance in place. And this applies across the whole CX spectrum. We've got to make sure that there's somebody who's responsible for giving a good experience. I heard from another guest that they talked about the experience with Hertz, the car rental company,
Yes.
where they've employed AI to do a scan of the vehicle at the end of the rental period. And then, unfortunately, it's, let's call it hallucination or misinterpreting data. It sees mud, it thinks it's a dent, and it'll, charge the customer. The question was raised: where does the buck stop? So you're telling me, and I'm hearing from you, that at the end of the day, we need to have somebody who's responsible for the solution, somebody who's got a responsibility within the organization. So you can't leave it all to AI today. You've got to have some other human interaction and some checks and balances. And at the moment, I think it is right to expect that. Do you see that changing in the future, where we will be reliant on AI agents who are able to do everything for us?
That'll be a scary day, right? I think you still need a human to turn up to your son or daughter's your football game and be there, and then take them for ice cream afterwards and give them a big hug for scoring the goal or whatever. You can't have an AI agent do that, but you can have an AI agent do those things that stops you from having a really good Sunday afternoon because you're just doing something that doesn't add any value. It's repetitive, it's mundane, you hate it. So I don't think that you and me want a society or a world where everything is done by AI. We just want AI to do the things that we don't like to do, so that you and me can have a coffee without worrying about these things, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'm all for that. So the more that we can do that, the better I think we'll be. If you then look at this, some of the mundane tasks, give me some examples of where you see that across a number of industries that might have potentially a contact center or some sort of customer service team involved. What are the sort of areas of automation or improvements that you can see coming in the horizon?
So if you look at the attrition rates surveys recently published by various contact center solution vendors, you find that the biggest reduction in attrition comes from making those interactions with every customers a positive one. And to have that positive interactions, you need to have good systems in place to stop them from being angry with you. So the moment somebody rings up the contact center person and screams at them because they are so frustrated and angry, that takes that mental health of that contact center agents to an all-time low, right? How do you protect them? Well, part of that is having really good automation and systems and processes to make sure that you minimize that in the first place. And even if it did, you make sure that you put that call to the right person straight away so that within a few seconds, you reassure the customer so they don't actually got to the point where they're screaming at you.
Mhm.
So that is really hard to do. And I've spoken to contact center managers, and they actually told me about that's one of their. In fact, we actually interviewed one of them together, and they told us how hard it is when um, somebody actually being abusive to one of their agents.
Mhm.
And very often it has a huge mark, and many of uh, the employees are recent migrants, and they find that really, really traumatic, you know. So we need to safeguard those employees, and one way of doing that is to make sure that when the sentiment is really, really, really angry from one of these people, you quickly escalate them to a team leader who has got more training to deal with these things. Um, Beyond that, it's just like any other systems, right?
Mm.
The question was.
No. So when you look at this, then let's go to the next level again and talk about how we're seeing a changing demographic, especially here in New Zealand, where we're seeing people where English is not necessarily the first language. There's a lot more in terms of omni-channel that we talked about before. What are you seeing that's happening from a CX perspective that needs to be a trend or technology implementation that's going to help us deal with the changing demographics that we're going to see in the future?
Yeah, so I think this is an important one. I caught up with Simon Bridges a couple of days ago, and he's the head CEO of Auckland Chamber of Commerce.
Mhm.
And we were talking about how Auckland has changed. I remember in 1995, I was the only brown person in the company with nearly 90 people. When I first started working here. Now he told me the statistics for Auckland, for example, is 45% of the population of Auckland are either from Chinese or Indian subcontinent,
Mm.
and that's a huge change. And that also means that we have got an exciting cosmopolitan population. Now, from a CX point of view, you've got all these people that have got different languages, different cultures. An AI bot can understand some of those cultures, but
Mm.
yeah, it's brutally important that they don't get that wrong just because they have um, a Chinese sounding name. They can't assume this person's speak Mandarin versus so they had to be really, really careful. So you can't just assume that. But if you give them a choice when they contact the contact center and say, would you like to interact in English, or would you like to interact in Cantonese or Mandarin? And if they chose to interact, then that's where the power of AI comes in, because the level of accuracy in the translation has gone million times in the last 5 years,
Mm.
thanks to AI. So even the slangs and things like that, he can pick those up. Accents, he can actually understand the difference between different parts of India, different parts of China. So that regardless of where those people have originated from, the AI agents can understand them way better than a human agent can. So I think there's a huge opportunity that very few people have actually tapped into.
We've gone through a number of different aspects. We're talking about replacing some people for automated tasks or taking them away from people, AI agents, doing research, keeping up with trends that are out there, and compliance. That becomes a really important element. And when we take a scalable solution, as long as we sandbox it, we can then make sure that we've got everything contained in a fashion
Yes.
that protects us, protects the employee, protects the customer, and it's really important for us. Now, from a good CX perspective, we've got to have leaders that listen and leaders that are willing to implement and drive things forward. So before I finish, let me ask you, what's one lesson that changed the way that you work or that you lead?
I think it's just trusting AI to do certain things that I shouldn't have trusted.
Yep.
So one of the things that I really hate, absolutely hate, and all my team members hate, is something called data migration.
Yes.
So when you actually move a system from one to another, this is where you get the data from all the different systems, and then you do this process called data preparation,
Hmm.
and then you feed it into the new system. So we used an AI agent to do all that. And somehow, because of the quality of the data, it actually made a mistake in joining two primary keys. And it actually put sensitive information about the customer into the wrong fields for another customer. So luckily, because we had the human checks to check that, we spotted it, but we had to start all over again from scratch. And this time we actually made sure that we used old school uh, Excel joins and queries until we have actually figured out how we can actually make that AI models more robust. So that was an expensive lesson to not to trust. And also sometimes in my early days of AI, people were actually using AI in the wrong way. You ask them a question and it tells you in total authority, black is white, and then you think, oh yeah, that sounds right. But we need to make sure that the prompts and the training that we provide are good enough so that you can rely on it. And it's an evolution process.
Yeah, I've heard that mentioned so many times, Tim, where we talk about this evolutionary process. Contain a small test example, make sure you can iron out all the bugs before you release it,
Yeah.
and ensure that if it's not working, you shut it down. If it isn't working, you improve it and you expand it. So if you want to finish this off, what do you hope listeners will take away from your episode today?
So I hope that everyone understands that CX is not about just one experience. It's a multiple experiences across every single touch point. And if you want to just work on your customer experience for your own business, start with one friction point, make that better, and see that return straight away. And that's the main takeaway.
Fantastic. So if any of our audience wants to get hold of you, how can they get hold of Tim?
Just search for Tim Muhundan, and I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. I'm always there posting stuff. Connect with me, have a coffee with me, or go for a walk with me like me and you do.
Definitely recommend that.
And thank you for the opportunity to talk to you.
My pleasure. Thank you for joining us today at the Kiwi CX Collective. Tim Muhundan from Automate.CX.
Thank you, Elias.